It's interesting, Senator, because you were incredibly prescient in your comments in 2016. I mean, you go back and look, and I've gone back and read almost everything that you said at the time, and it's quite amazing how you predicted all of this. You predicted everything we saw. In 2013, and March 13, 2016, you said, here's what the people need to understand. This notion that a president can just say anything they want, could say anything they want, whatever comes to mind, it's just not true, and it's reckless, and it's dangerous. And specifically discussing violence, which you noted were occurring at Trump rallies, Trump events, not at your events, not at other people's events. You even said, not even at Bernie Sanders' events. You said, this is what happens when a leading presidential candidate goes around feeding into a narrative of anger and bitterness and frustration. I think the question is what this means for the future of America, not just the Republican Party. And I just want to add one more thing that you said, because you spoke on this often. You said, but mark my words, there will be prominent people in American politics who will spend years explaining to people how they fell into this. And I guess listening to some of the things that you've said in recent years, I'm wondering if you fell into it yourself.
Well, Jim, I would say this to you. Number one is if you look over the last 4 years, the president has spoken on almost a daily basis. And there weren't daily riots. In fact, there's one instance that we now have of this sort of unrest, and it was just a day and time that obviously had a lot of factors in one place at one time. I continue to believe that the president's words have impact, and I've already said to you, but I think he bears some level of responsibility for what happened that day and the things leading up to that day. But by the same token, I'm not going to ignore that there are elements involved in our society that go beyond simply Donald Trump. This idea that somehow all of this is Donald Trump's fault does not excuse him, but is also fair. Because the truth of the matter is that we have fundamental things going on within our society that made Donald Trump possible, that made the things I was talking about on that date possible. Donald Trump did not create these factors. He's a product of a lot of the things that were already in our country and these deep divisions that, frankly, both sides have when you have Democratic members going out there telling people. And I've got the nasty, disgusting letters that are sent to my home, to my children to prove it. And I've got the protesters that have confronted us in our home to prove it. I just don't run to the news every day to talk about it, but it happens. That there is nastiness all across the political spectrum. And there are members of Congress on the Democratic side that have told people to get in a member of Congress's face, to confront him in public. Chuck Schumer said that if the Supreme Court didn't rule the way he wanted them to, they would pay the consequences for it. They don't stand for election. What do they mean by consequences? So I think it's true across the board. And frankly, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying if you look at cable news is entirely driven by conflict. Every morning, you turn on a cable news network, they're not reporting news. They're trying to get people angry at each other and to hate each other because it drives up the ratings. So all of this we need to examine as a society and as a country. I think it's unfair to pin all of that on one person.
But he is the president, and the president bears a certain level higher accountability than others. And again, this is the last thing I'll quote from 2016, because it rang when you just said something. I was going to leave it out, but I'll say it. Most countries around the world that are failures because they deposit their hopes in a person, a strong leader who comes forward to say, put me in power and I will make the country better. That's exactly what Donald Trump, is doing. The rhetoric reminds me of third world strongmen. That's what you said in 2016. Didn't we see a third world strongman in the days from the election leading up through January 6th? No, because in a third world strongman doesn't have to leave their position of power. The President of the United States, at the end of the day, Donald Trump, walked out of the White House and went into private life. In the third world banana republic, that transition doesn't happen. There was an election in this country. He didn't like the outcome. He complained about the outcome. He raised some claims that were not proven to be true, and he raised others that I think people will look at and say, okay, that's not fraud, but we do have problems with voting laws in certain places that undermine public confidence and create the opportunity for these sort of things to be said. That's why Florida and other states are trying to tighten that thing up. That doesn't mean the outcome is illegitimate. It means that confidence in an election, that's why these laws are in place, so people can't raise these things in the future. But I think it's unfair to say that he was a third world. I see people throw these terms out there loosely. Third world strongmen ultimately don't leave power because there isn't some transition. Well, you said it. Those are your words. The rhetoric reminds me of a third world strongman. Sure, but at the time we were running in a primary, I was pointing out to the fact
that rhetoric was not my rhetoric, and that it has consequences for it. Again, it goes to what I said to you at the beginning. Donald Trump and I do not have the same style and the same way of acting. But I will say also this to you. I also believe that despite the things he does that I haven't agreed with and have said so, and in fact, on times voted against some of the things he wanted that we didn't agree on, I also believe that he's been often treated unfairly. Right now, we have children. We have reopening migrant centers, including one here in South Florida, the exact same thing Donald Trump did. And I will bet you right now that the media coverage of it will not even be 1/10 of what it was when Donald Trump did that. The exact same thing, just 2.5 years ago. So I think there comes a point.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I'm sure what I'm trying to tell you is that at the end of the day, there's an imbalance here and a hypocrisy here that the American people see, and it actually strengthens the arguments that he makes.
But it's, and I promise I do want to talk to you about the PPP program, about immigration. So I promise this is the last thing. You talk about how, and I agree with you. I've covered you, Senator, from the time of your days in the State House 20 years ago. And I know your rhetoric isn't like that. And there was a moment in 2016 where you even said Donald Trump got the better of you when you lowered yourself to his level, talking about the little hands comment. And you apologized for that, and you were sincere in saying that that's not who you are. But then I saw on November 1st at the Opelika event where you said regarding that bus that was surrounded by Trump supporters on the highway in Texas. When you spoke at the rally, you said, "I saw yesterday a video of these people in Texas. Did you see it? And the crowd is cheering while you're saying this. All the cars on the road, we love what they did."
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that, I mean, in a way, didn't you fall prey to the type of the very thing that you're saying we have to avoid now on both sides? Didn't you fall into that?
No, because what I saw at the time was a video of a bunch of cars on the road and a Biden bus on the road. Now, after the fact is when you saw reports about, oh, they tried to run them off the road. I still haven't seen a video of them running off the road, but that's what some people say happened. If I had seen a video of that, I would have said something very different. I was talking about a caravan of cars on a highway while there was a Biden bus driving. I didn't see anybody cutting anybody off or running them off the road or doing anything dangerous. If I had seen that, I would have said something different. That's what people say happened, and it may have. I still, to this day, haven't seen it. Maybe there is no video of that. Maybe there is. But that's what I was talking about.
Rubio, who is running for re-election in 2022, told me he has not spoken to the former president since November, although he said he is likely to speak to him soon. Do you envision making a pilgrimage up to Mar-a-Lago?
Well, it wouldn't be a pilgrimage for me. I mean, it's in Florida. It's the state, Mar-a-Lago. So it would be a visit to someone who lives in our state, as I do people all the time. So I don't consider it a pilgrimage. I'm actually, I don't believe I've ever been to Mar-a-Lago at any point. But that may very well come a day where I'll visit there. But for me, it's not a pilgrimage. Other people have to come from other states. For me, it's just a short ride up I-95.